Thank you. Hearing Lara's introduction about how we've been working together for the last 20 years is on the one hand exhilarating, and the other it's depressing. There's this yahrzeit element of this, the annual memorial service of coming into Washington and describing how things have gotten incrementally worse during the last year. One of the famous Israeli comedy routines is dubbed a festival of songs on clinical depression, and we Jerusalemites are very adept at that. I've been in town for a couple of days, and where do matters stand? And we're hearing statements like, "Well, I'm not optimistic, I'm not pessimistic, I'm pragmatic," and that sounds wonderful. What do you mean by that? I think the day after a State of the Union address and a year into a Netanyahu government, and after the dust has cleared a bit over Palestinian leadership, it is appropriate to do a summing up as to where matters stand. And I would say it's not a question of optimism, pessimism, or pragmatism, but we are in the midst of a great drama. Some of this drama, I think, is very evident to the people in this room. I think some of the drama is hidden and needs be illuminated. What has happened in the Jerusalem context in this last year, in the first year of the Obama administration? First of all, it's clear that Jerusalem has become the arena of choice in which the spoilers of the conflict and the spoiler in the souls of all of the players are coming out of the woodwork. It is the place where the Prime Minister of Israel has, by choice, for the most part, taken his stand, even at the expense of picking a fight with the President of the United States. Almost every public altercation and more private altercations between the President, this administration, and the Prime Minister of Israel have been over Jerusalem issues. June and July, Shepherd's Hotel, the Gilo expansion plans, the new tenders, and things of that nature. I don't believe that Mr. Netanyahu is intentionally picking a fight with the president, but was basically saying, in order for me to galvanize my position in Israeli public opinion, this is what I need do, and I am oblivious to the concerns both of the United States, the position of the United States, and certainly its impact on the Arab world. There is a theatrical element to this. An example of this, tenders were announced I think 6 weeks ago, 692 units, a blow to the attempts to kickstart the political process. I went out and looked for those tenders, couldn't find them. I found 2 old ones. They haven't been published yet, 6 weeks later. Now, I am by no means saying this is all theater. Those tenders are coming, and they'll happen, and they're bad. But there was something gratuitous about announcing these plans when you don't even have them. When Ariel Sharon did provocative actions, he thought in terms of bulldozers and cement, and when my Prime Minister does that now, he thinks in terms of soundbite, to great detriment to the political process. In addition to this taking of a stand, there's something else going on, particularly in and around the Old City. The discourse on settlement is probably the best-known discourse in this town because it has the longest pedigree. We've been doing it for the last 43 years. There's almost nothing new to be learned about it except how bad things are getting. The events surrounding the Old City go well beyond the discourse on settlement and have to do with the radicalization of the fabric of the public domain in and around the Old City. And events in and around the Old City have, in this last year, careened out of control. You have massive excavations, not going on underneath Haram al-Sharif, that's a fabrication, but under the Muslim Quarter. You have virtually all of the archaeology turned over to the extreme exclusionary settler organizations. You have a transformation of home demolitions from random crime, namely getting struck by lightning if you build illegally, to pattern crime, namely having demolitions take place in areas targeted by the extreme settler organizations. And when these happens, the response of the government of Israel is, moi? No, that's Mr. Barkat. This is a municipal issue. Let there be no doubt about this. There's a proxy war going and the attempt of the government of Israel to dissociate itself from the acts and omissions of a problematic mayor are disingenuous, to say the least. Telegraphically, what is at stake is the following. I'm doing this telegraphically to leave time for discussion and to further extrapolate on things. Let's be blunt. Should current trends continue, the rhetoric be backed up by deed in the territorial, terrestrial dimension, it will be under the first watch of this administration, namely the first administration, perhaps only, of President Obama, in which the two-state solution will be lost. I am not speaking from the perspective of a grand strategist. I'm speaking from the perspective of an amateur but knowledgeable cartographer. The demography and geography of Jerusalem will be so balkanized, such a patchwork, ethnic patchwork, national patchwork, that it will not be possible to create a reasonable, viable political boundary in Jerusalem. And if the two-state solution does not take place inside Jerusalem, it will not take place at all. We are hanging on by our fingernails to the two-state solution, and contrary to current fads among certain areas of the left, there's no other solution. And destroying the two-state solution will not create, out of nothing, an alternative. But that is not the only thing that we are holding on to. We are holding on by our fingernails to the nature of the conflict, and if anybody needs a reminder, I highly recommend that they go and listen to bin Laden. We, Israelis and Palestinians, are engaged in a bitter, nasty, bloody national political conflict, which is, on occasion, fueled by religious extremism. Being a national political conflict, it is a crisis that is manageable by mortal men and women, and it is ultimately resolvable by the tool craft of statesmanship. It is not utopian to aspire to a political resolution of this conflict. What is transpiring in and around the Old City, turning the Old City and its environs into an evangelical settler theme park, turning over the most sensitive sites on the planet to those who are trying to establish a settler hegemony, supremacy, exclusionary over these sites, is the equivalent of turning over books of matches to a pyromaniac. It contains the seeds of a transformation of a resolvable political conflict into an intractable religious conflict, a combination of Milchemet Mitzvah, Jihad, Holy War, Armageddon, Second Coming, hopefully in that order. And then we can all go home, except for us, because we're home in Jerusalem, and then where do we go? That is what is at stake. Where does that leave us at the end of this year? I don't believe, under current circumstances, that Netanyahu will publicly deliver more on the Jerusalem issue than he already has. I do not believe that, failing that, the Palestinians in the Arab world will come back to negotiations. Under current circumstances, Jerusalem is a complex entity. It is the reason that negotiations are not resuming. I'm working very closely with the Egyptians and the Jordanians as well as the Palestinians. And they say to me very compellingly, we cannot return to negotiations under circumstances in which we will appear to be complicit in the loss of Al-Quds to the Arab world and to the Islamic world. And when when Islamic diplomats will say to me, you Israelis are burrowing under the mosques, I tell them nonsense. But when they tell me that Islam and Christianity are being marginalized by this settler hegemony, they are making a very compelling argument.